The Raptor. Most people have heard of it by now. Most people think they understand it. They don't. Because it's not the most powerful rocket engine ever built. It's not the most efficient. Certainly not the biggest. But what it is the tool that sets us on the journey to colonising another world. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how. Are you ready? Because it's time to go. Now, before we talk about the engine itself, we need to talk about the enemy. Because getting off this planet isn't just difficult, it's almost cosmically unfair. Earth's gravity well is one of the strongest of any rocky body in our solar system, and what that means in practice is this. To get anything into orbit, you don't just need to go up, you need to go fast, roughly 28,000 kilometers per hour fast, sideways, until you're moving so quickly that you keep missing the ground as you fall. And Earth? Well, she's fighting you every single meter of the way. That's why rockets are so big. Not because space is far away. The size is the price that Earth charges for letting you leave. Conventional rockets burn almost the entire machine just to get a tiny capsule into orbit. 95% of what you see on the launch pad, fuel tank, engines is gone before anything useful reaches space. If you're lucky, 5% makes it. That's the deal that Earth offers, and for 60 years we had no choice but to accept it. SpaceX looked at that deal and said no. They wanted at least a third of the vehicle to make it into orbit, and then the whole thing to come back, land itself and fly again. Not the capsule, not a data recorder, the entire rocket. That's not incremental improvement. That's a completely different game. But to play that game, you need an engine powerful enough, efficient enough, and tough enough to take on Earth's gravity well and win. Not once, every single time. So it was never about being the most powerful engine ever built. It's about one engine, working 33 times over. Not 6, not 10, 33. Because that is what Earth costs. Something worth knowing before we go any further. SpaceX didn't come to this problem as beginners. By the time they started designing the Raptor, they'd already built one of the greatest rocket engines in history. Called the Merlin, it powers the Falcon 9, one of the most reliable rockets ever made. The one that lands itself on a drone ship in the middle of the ocean, flies again the very next week. The Merlin is a masterpiece. SpaceX had already won. So the question that should be nagging at you right about now, if you've already built one of the best engines in the world, why would you eliminate it from your future and start again from scratch? 2 reasons. The first, the Merlin runs on kerosene, and kerosene for SpaceX's ambitions is a dead end. And it's not because it's a bad fuel, it's a great fuel, but because you cannot make it anywhere else other than on Earth. If your plan is to land on Mars and more importantly come home again, kerosene means you're carrying your return fuel from Earth with you. The mathematics of that, the sheer weight, cost, complexity, means it simply doesn't work. The second reason is reusability. Not just reusability, but rapid reusability. Elon Musk has always been clear the goal was never a rocket you could fly twice in 10 days. It's a rocket that behaves like an aircraft. You land it, you check it over, you fly it again as fast as possible, as many times as possible. The Merlin gets you part way there, but kerosene leaves residue inside the engine, which means maintenance, which means time, which means cost. It was never going to get you to airline-style operations, and airline-style operations are the only way the economics of Mars will ever work. So, 2 reasons, and both of them pointing at the same conclusion. They needed a completely different fuel, built around a completely different engine, and finding that fuel started with one question. So if kerosene is a dead end, what's the answer? Well, someone at SpaceX asked a question that nobody else in the rocket industry was asking. Not what's the most powerful fuel, not what's the cheapest fuel, not even what's the safest fuel. They asked, what fuel can we make on another planet? And that's it, that's the question that changed everything. Because something most people don't consider, a mission to Mars takes around 7 months. You land, but then you need to get back home, which means you need fuel for the return journey. So you have 2 choices. You either carry that return fuel all the way from Earth, which means launching more of it, which means an even bigger rocket, which means even more fuel to lift that fuel, and the whole thing becomes an impossible spiral. Or you make the fuel on Mars. Mars has a carbon dioxide atmosphere and water ice under the surface. If you combine the 2, run them through a fairly simple chemical process, and you get methane and oxygen, methalox for short. That's the fuel, made from Martian air and ice. And that's what makes interplanetary travel to Mars actually possible. They picked the fuel first, then they built an engine capable of harnessing everything it could give them. And on top of that, they stacked the largest flying machines humans have ever built. But look at Starship, and it's easy to get swept up in the scale of it, the height, the size, the sheer presence of the thing on the pad. But that's not what makes it possible. None of it works without what's bolted to the bottom. The engines are the real story here. Everything else is just standing on top of them. And there's a bonus that nobody quite expected. Methane burns clean, so no soot, no carbon buildup, which means the Raptor flies again and again and again, with barely any servicing in between. So one decision, the fuel choice, and it solved the Mars problem and the reusability problem in the same breath. That's obviously great engineering, but it's also bloody genius. So let's get specific about what's actually bolted to the bottom of the rocket. It comes in 2 versions. Sea level, built to fire inside Earth's atmosphere, and vacuum optimized, built for the vacuum of space. Both run on methalox, methane and liquid oxygen, the fuel that we just saw Mars hand us for free. The booster runs 33 of them. That's what fights Earth's gravity well. The ship runs on 6. 3 sea level, 3 vacuum. Currently that's all it needs. But the number was never the clever part. What's clever is what's happening inside these engines. Because the way these things work, nobody had ever pulled it off. Not at this scale. Every rocket engine ever built has the same basic challenge. You're burning fuel to produce thrust. But to burn fuel, you need to pump enormous amounts of it into the engine incredibly fast against enormous pressure. And pumping at that scale takes serious power in itself. So how do you power those pumps? Old engines had a simple answer. Steal some of the fuel, burn it separately to spin the pumps, and then dump the exhaust overboard. And it works. But you're wasting fuel. And wasted fuel means less thrust, more weight, and shorter life. The Raptor wastes nothing. Instead of dumping that exhaust overboard like older engines do, it feeds it straight back into the main engine and burns it again. Every molecule of fuel and oxygen gets burned twice, and all of it becomes thrust. Think of it like your car engine turbocharging itself with its own exhaust. then burning that exhaust again on the way out. Nothing vented, nothing wasted. The result: higher chamber pressure than any rocket engine ever flown, more thrust, runs cooler, lasts longer. And because nothing goes to waste, it needs less fuel to do the same job, which means more of the rocket makes it to orbit. Remember the deal that Earth offers: 95% waste, 5% useful? This is SpaceX's answer. Not the most efficient in the way most people mean that, but the least wasteful engine ever built, for sure. So, clean fuel, the most advanced engine cycle ever built. But put 33 of them together, and this happens. I'm not sure that I can describe exactly what it does to me seeing 33 Raptor engines light up together. But when I was a boy, dreaming of colonising other worlds, that's exactly what the future was supposed to look like. The engine that you just watched, that looks impossibly powerful and clean, that's the Raptor 3. It's the third generation of the Raptor engine. And the reason it matters is because of where it started. Raptor 1 was extraordinary for its time, but if you put it next to Raptor 3 today, you'd barely believe that they were related. Raptor 1 was covered in pipes, sensors, exposed components, running across the outside of the engine like scaffolding. Brilliant, but complicated. The visual of a company who was learning in public, moving fast, not waiting until it was perfect. Then came Raptor 2, simpler, lighter, more powerful, fewer parts. The pipes started disappearing. The engine started to look like it knew what it was. And then Raptor 3, almost naked by comparison. It flew the first time on Flight 12 in May 2026. Most of those external components moved inside or eliminated entirely. More thrust, fewer parts, easier to build, easier to reuse. Many in the space industry doubted that it was functional. In the time it takes most aerospace companies to redesign a single engine, SpaceX built 3 full generations of one. And they're not done. This is what it looks like when a company isn't protecting its last idea. When every version exists to make the next one possible. When the goal isn't the engine that you have, it's the engine that you need. Because the engine they need has to fly dozens of times, maybe hundreds, without ever being thrown away, without major maintenance between flights. Like a jet engine. Like a black cab that just keeps on going. Raptor 3 is the closest they've ever been to that engine. Whatever comes next will be closer still. So let's zoom out, because everything we've spoken about so far, the gravity well, the fuel choice, the engine cycle, the iteration, it all points to one place. NASA has selected Starship as one of the landing systems for the Artemis program. When the next humans finally step on the lunar surface from a Starship, Raptor engines will be what got them there. But the moon is just the rehearsal. Mars is the destination. And here's how it actually works. You don't just point a rocket at Mars and go. The plan is uncrewed Starships go first. They land, they set up infrastructure, they start making fuel, methalox from the Martian atmosphere and the ice under the surface. By the time the first crewed mission arrives, the fuel is already there waiting. They land, they complete their mission, and when it's time to come home, they refuel from Mars itself and fly back to Earth. No fuel from home, no impossible spiral of weight and cost, just a rocket that can feed itself on another planet. And that only works because of a decision that was made in a SpaceX design meeting years ago. Pick the fuel that you can make on Mars, and then build the best engine for that capability around it. It was never a collection of clever ideas. It was one idea, followed all the way to its conclusion. So, here's what I want you to take away from this. This was never just a rocket. Every decision that we've talked about today, none of it was made to build a better launch vehicle. None of it was made to win contracts or outcompete rivals. Every single decision was made because somebody looked at Mars and said, we're going. What fuel can you make on another planet? Methalox. So build the engine around that. How do you fight Earth's gravity well affordably enough to do it over and over again? Full reusability. Build the engine that makes that possible. How do you get better fast enough? Iterate relentlessly. Raptor 1 to 2 to 3 and whatever comes next. It's not a collection of clever engineering decisions. It's one coherent plan, built from the ground up with a single destination in mind. And here's the thing that gets me every single time I think about it. We're still in the testing phase. Starship hasn't carried a single person. The missions to Mars have not begun yet. The footprint on another world is yet to be made. You're watching this at the very beginning. Whatever you felt when those 33 engines lit up and started shaking the ground, the feeling's only going to get bigger from here. And every flight from now brings us one step closer to the moment where this stops being a dream and starts becoming reality. I'm going to be covering this every step of the way, in plain English, just like we've done today. If that's something you'd like to be a part of, you know what to do. And if you're watching this in the future, when we've already made it, I bloody knew it.